about this venue from Drew and his incredible team. I remember Drew and I connected about a year ago on a phone call, and he had one of these studios. And he's like, it's actually my house. I'm looking forward to moving out. We're doing this, that, and the other. And fast forward 12 months. So what happens when you put non-negotiables in place and unleash that dream? So hats off to the team here. And thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite, Justin. Any gamblers in the room today? Cool. I'm taking 5-1 odds. I'm going to bomb this talk. So we'll settle up in the back. All right? Sound good? Justin asked me not to go mindset. I don't know what he's got against Ed Milet, but I'm kidding. Mindset, woo-woo, and all of that. But I can't help myself. My God-given gift is the platform. My gift is getting so far in your head, you are driven to action. You'll never forget you met Sebastian Rusk. Why? Because hopefully I touched your heart, I got in your head, and you went out and you did something with it. So if it's okay with you, I want to start this talk the same way I start all of my talks. And that's asking you a question that I was posed some 15 years ago, that radically, and when I do say radically, changed my life in an instant. Friends, who's missing out because you're not showing up?
You.
Me, you, her, who knows? Fill in the blank. But we're here today to learn how to create content, to monetize content. For what though? I don't know about you, I want to leave people different. There's a clock ticking that none of us can see, and we got one shot at this thing called life. We want to make the best of it. And now there's never been a more exciting time to be alive. There's never been a more exciting time to get our message out, to share our passion. But realize our dreams are attached to someone else's dreams. I look at what I get to do. We don't have to do anything. We get to do everything. I look at it as an extreme privilege and responsibility. I read a book called Fresh Wind, Fresh Fire about 15 years ago by a guy named Jim Cymbala. It's a story of the Brooklyn Tabernacle. You might have heard of it. And one thing stood out in that book, one sentence that really shifted my mindset forever. And that was, my biggest fear is going through life and my life passing me by without God showing up mightily on my behalf. And for the past 15 years, I've been living my gift, and I continue to do it, and I feel like I'm just getting started. So today, we're going to go on a little journey together. I hate that word, but it came up, so we just used it. Run with it. And I'm going to help you better understand what it takes to launch a podcast. But remember, the podcast is just the vehicle. What you get to do with it, who you get to meet, who you get to connect with, and most importantly, who you get to become is what it's all about. You guys ready? Say yes or yes. Yes. All right, cool. Are slides behind me or no?
Not yet. Click.
Okay. I got all excited about this LCD. I was like, look, Mama, I made it.
Hey, can we get his slides up on the big screen, team?
All right, so I titled this talk, How Starting a Podcast Can Radically Change Your Life and Your Business, if you let it. Why am I qualified to give a talk titled How to Change Your Life and Business by Starting a Podcast? Because friends, I've lived it for the past 15 years, and I now enable other people just like you to do the same thing. I am a human defibrillator. The vehicle is the podcast. That's a very, very small part of it, because we all have this thing called the inner critic. Anybody have an inner critic? Yeah, it's time to silence that, because that inner critic holds us back from what we need to be doing, which in turn makes somebody miss out. So why do I want to start a podcast? Why? Everyone's all big on finding your why. We talked about it this morning. Dean gave an incredible talk about figuring out why we're doing what we're doing. I can't tell you what your why is. That's a one-player game. But if you sit down and ask yourself a couple questions, you can usually get to the bottom of that. When you wake up in the morning and your feet hit the floor, you get that funny feeling in your stomach and you go, yeah, I want to do that. Chances are that's attached to your why. I'm often asked, Sebastian, why do you do what you do? Because I have a gift. When I was in Sunday school as a little kid, I used to sing a song called This Little Light of Mine, I'm gonna let it shine. And I'm still singing that song. Why? Because my light's still shining, but I also want to be able to help other people light theirs. Because that's really what this thing is all about, fulfillment. So why do I do what I do? Because I like watching people step into a completely different version of themselves because they started a podcast. So just a little context on why, but you need to figure out why you're doing what you're doing. We're not going to just start a podcast because everybody else has a podcast. We're not following the crowd. We're trying to create a category of one. Quick little PSA as well about podcasts and the amount of them out there. Are there too many podcasts out there? My immediate question when someone asks me that is, are there too many books out there? Probably not. Books have been around for centuries and centuries and will continue to be. People will always start them. Maybe some of them never finish them. Maybe they do, but what you are creating is for your community. What you are creating is for your tribe, your group, your organization. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing because it really doesn't matter. All that matters is who you're able to pour into through what you're actually creating. Everybody clear about that? Say yes or yes. All right, cool. Last little bit of woo, and then we're going to get into the tactical stuff, okay? I want to give everybody permission real quick, and I want to let everybody know in this room and online that yes, you can. I know, really woo. What is this? So we're going to walk on fire next? Friends, it's important to go back to the basics sometimes and say, you know what? Yes, you can. You know why? Because somewhere along the line, somebody told us we couldn't do something and we believed them. And then we took it a step further and we started living our lives according to the story and the narrative that was created that wasn't even true. So today we can change the narrative. Why? By giving ourselves permission and saying, I'm doing it. You know why? Because I said that I'm doing it. You think Steve Jobs asked for permission when he created the iPhone? No. 25 years ago, could you imagine 30 years ago? Come to you go, listen, man, I'm going to create this device. You're going to carry it around in your back pocket. It's going to be a microcomputer. You're going to be able to call people, send these things called text messages and images and whatever you want all across the world whenever you want. You would have thought the guy had 10 heads and boogers. He didn't care. You know why? Because he made the declaration and said, I'm created the iPhone. You know why? Because I said so. So we all get to do the same thing on whatever it is you're creating. Today, I'm talking about podcasting. It could be your book, it could be your YouTube channel, it could be whatever your thing is. But just remember, you got everything you need and you got the permission. You know why? Because you're giving yourself. And if you need some more, I just gave you some more. Everybody good with that? All right, let's dive in here. Why should I start a podcast? Well, first of all, it allows us to tell our stories. Stories connect us with other people. Stories allow us to resonate with other people. A podcast allows you to serve your community or a community that you're building. Why? You're sharing your expertise, you're sharing your knowledge, you're sharing what you know. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing by sharing your gifts with the world. It builds new relationships. This is the number one thing that I help people do when it comes to starting a podcast. People come to me and go, I want to start a podcast. I kind of know why, but how do I monetize a podcast? What if I told you could interview people that you want to do business with, build a rapport with them, make it all about them, build a relationship with them, and then go in for a small, very casual, nonchalant, natural ask to do business with them? I can't tell you the countless agency clients I've acquired by simply saying, hey, Melissa, it's really great to meet you. I'd love to get you on the podcast sometime. You know, Sebastian, I've been thinking about a podcast. It's been on. This is divine intervention. Let's set up a call and chat about what's possible. Let's do it. That's what I teach people to do. I have a local client here in Miami that does retail point of sale, everything up to swiping the card, all the hardware, reward systems. He came here from Trinidad 2 years ago and started this company. He's in my local networking group. He started the podcast 15 months ago. He's made $190,000 with just his podcast. Why? Because he interviews people that he wants to do business with. This stuff isn't hard. All of us have businesses. All of us have prospects. All of us have a pipeline. And all of us love to network and connect and make money. A podcast is that main vehicle. So that's the number one way to monetize a podcast. It creates a platform that allows you to serve. Serving is our responsibility. If If you have a gift, it's your responsibility to share it. If you're not sharing it, you're being grossly negligent to not only yourself, but the people that get the opportunity to experience you. So let that sink in. Finding out your why. This is kind of a little exercise I run my clients through when they're trying to figure out what that why is. Remember, I can't give you your why. That's a one-player job, but you can run through this quick exercise. If I had my dream business, I would be doing fill in the blank. I feel most fulfilled when I do fill in the blank. My deepest desire is to fill in the blank. Meditate with that. Read that before you go to bed. Read that when you wake up in the morning. Think about it. Pray about it. Whatever your thing is, it'll come to you. Stay curious. Curiosity is grossly underrated in this hyper digitally connected world that we're in. Stay curious and understand that anything's possible, but only 100% of the time. But stay open. We don't know shit. We really don't. We know what we know, and that's about it. Curiosity keeps that wheel spinning. Here's what it takes to start a podcast. Step one. Well, step one's figuring out why you're doing it. Next step is to come up with a name. A name should be comprised of something that's catchy, an idea, a concept, not your company name podcast. We're not doing the Move Miami podcast. That may be a thing. Sorry, Drew. But you want to get something that complements your brand and your business, but might not necessarily be your company name. I don't believe the word podcast needs to be in the name. It's very redundant and obvious that you do have a podcast. We don't need to put the word podcast in the name, even though it's already being done at scale. I'm trying to change all of that. And what we don't want to do is AOL screen names. I'm dating myself by saying AOL screen names. But we don't want to go back to the days where, I'm, squigglebutt33 at AOL.com. That's an extreme example there. But what we don't want to do is, my podcast is this, get it? Get it? Because guess what? People don't get it. We give people far too much credit for thinking that we get it or that they understand, and they don't. Here's what we're looking to do. We're looking to come up with a name that's catchy, that's sticky, that's explicitly clear about what you do. You're looking for responses like, you know what? I like that. I totally get that. My podcast is called Podcasts Suck. If you don't have one, I know that may be a little shocking to some of you. But why would you name your podcast Podcast Suck? Because it's a podcast about starting and growing a podcast. It also happens to be my tagline. It's what I'm known for. It's the title of my book. It's my bumper sticker. I'm kidding, I don't have a bumper sticker. But I do have an EV. I went to the dark side. But you're coming up with your idea. The idea of it is something that you want to make sure resonates. ChatGPT is an incredible resource. I'm starting a podcast. Podcast is going to be about this. I do this as this. This is about me about this. Give me 15 catchy, relatable names that I could utilize for the podcast. Let the robots go to work. Chances are you're going to find something that you like. Once you do that, though, go to Apple real quick and make sure it's not already out there. It could already be out there. That doesn't mean you can't utilize it, but I mean, come on. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's not try and add to the existing noise that's out there. And then commit. The lack of commitment, especially when it comes to content, is very challenging these days because we're constantly on to the next thing. Well, I was on TikTok, now I'm in Snapchat. We got this and we're here and listen, let's get really good at one thing. Let's just go all in on one thing and get really, really good and commit. Our program's 15 months long. Why? Because I want to lock people into a contract for 15 months? No. Because I've experienced, when I first launched the company 10 years ago, it was a 30-day program. Then I realized, we're not going to get this thing launched in 30 days. So I said, okay, let's make it 6 months. And I realized 6 months was way too long. Then I found that little sweet spot of 90 days. And now I'm finding people launch in about 45 to 60 days, but I still give them 90 anyway, just in case life may come up on there. But it's 90 days or less to launch. I make them commit to 90 days, and you have to get it done. Day 91, you're going to start all over again. And the reason I do that, I don't want people signing up today and calling me in December and going, okay, I'm finally ready to go. There is a timing to this. There is a timing to life. There is a timing to what we're actually creating. The faster that we can create something and get it out into the world, the faster we can start to see the results from it, whether it be impact, new business, whatever it may be. So commitment. So important when it comes to launching a podcast and sticking with it. The other end after people launch with us is 12 months. That's the full 15 months. Why is that long? Because in my experience, based on the data and what we've seen, is that if people can take 90 days or less to launch and they can stay in the game for a minimum of 12 months, they're never going to stop. I have a great example. I'm going to show you some clips here in just a second of in fact, how I met Justin Colby, our mutual, my dear friend and longtime client, Brandon Brittingham, wildly successful real estate investor up in Delaware, in the Maryland area, did not need to start a podcast. This guy, as my buddy Rich would say, is paid in full. But he did it because he knew it was his responsibility. He's now monetized the podcast to well over 1 million downloads and makes between $30,000 and $50,000 a month from sponsors. What? He doesn't have to do it. Think about that. A lot of people are doing it because they have to do it. Not that they have to do it, but they want to do it to generate more revenue. He could stop working today and still be good. So I use that as perspective. Commitment, very important. That's the most important on this entire list. Name. We talked a little bit about that a few seconds ago, so I won't spend much time here. Catchy, relatable, complement your brand, no screen names, no get it. Remember, our ideas aren't always the best ideas. Get feedback from people that make your butthole pucker a little bit, okay? That's important. Get feedback from people that make you feel a little uncomfortable. Those are the people. I'm surrounded by truth tellers. A lot of my other friends would say some of your friends are verbally abusive. I want that in my life because it keeps me humble and they tell me the truth. My best friend Rich says, he calls me Rusk by my last name. He goes, Rusk, I'm just here to call balls and strikes. And he's been calling balls and strikes for the past 10 years. And he really doesn't care what I do in my business. He just wants to make sure I keep my nose clean, I keep my eye on the prize, and I stay focused and integrity of what I'm doing. Surround yourself with people like that. Branding. This is so important because I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of really bad podcast cover art out there. That's your podcast logo. That's the only visual piece that people see, by the way. It's the first impression that people see when they come there. Some people get in here and open up Canva and think they're a graphic designer and come up with this Mickey Mouse. It's bad. And that's people's first impression. They will judge you. And if your cover art looks like crap, they will never press play. So remember that. This is your show logo. You use it for marketing. Yes, you can create one on Canva if you have a graphics person on your team or you possess graphic design talent. If you don't, get a freelancer, find someone else who can help you do it and make it a reality. Make sure it's clean, make sure it resonates with people, make sure it matches your brand, etc. Hire a freelancer on Fiverr, make sure they have experience with podcast cover art. Podcast cover art doesn't always mean that a graphic designer can get it done. You want to make sure it looks the way it should for a podcast with the formatting, all of the above. Here's some more about branding. There, speaking of Brandon Brittingham, that's his podcast, Wake Up to Wealth. He just hit 1.2 million downloads. This is an idea of what branding should look like. I'm not saying these are the end all of podcast cover art, but my team created these. I'm very proud of what we've created because I think it's clean. I think it's appealing. I don't think it's cheesy. I think people look at them and go, that's pretty sexy. I'd listen to that show. Waste to Wealth. He just had an exit last year from the dumpster rental company and is now a full-time, going all in with his CPA business. So the podcast is called Waste to Wealth. The deal pen, he's an ex-MLB pitcher turned real estate investor. We coined the phrase the deal pen, and he liked it immediately. It was kind of one of those, we kind of got lucky out of there. So this is how we are creating and coming up with names and concepts of what's happening. Brandon automatically knew what his name was. He goes, I'm going to call it Wake Up to Wealth. Because at the end of every episode, I want to ask my guest, what does it mean to wake up to wealth? And it's such an interesting question to ask people because you get a different answer every time because all of us have different answers for what wealth actually is. Everybody clear on what your branding should look like when it comes to podcast? Say yes or yes. Yes. Okay, cool. Let's rock and roll. Equipment. Okay. You can plug a mic into your iPhone with decent lighting and hit the record button and record an episode. You can also record an episode on Zoom, on the Zoom app, on your phone and interview someone and hit record. It's that easy. Our phone's shooting 4K. Audio's good on them. If you have a mic plugged in, even better. Decent lighting. Make sure the window's in front of you, not behind you. I can't believe I have to remind people of that, but the window in front of you, so we have lighting. You can literally record your podcast on your phone, okay? Most people don't do that, but if you're sitting here waiting for money not to be funny and cows not to go moo and the sun not to come up for you to find the perfect podcast equipment, let me stop you right there with your excuses and realize you can get this done with the little microcomputer that we're all heavily addicted to, that we're never more than 3.5 feet away from at any given time. This is this microphone right here is what I recommend most of our clients that are just recording from their space, from their own space or their office, recording remotely, utilize. This is an Audio-Technica USB microphone. It is, the sound quality is exceptional. It's $59 on Amazon. By the way, I'm gonna give you my podcast equipment guide in just a second here, so you guys can download it, and all the equipment that I do recommend pertaining to mics and audio and video and everything are gonna be on that list. How you doing?
Amazing.
Let's go. All right, there it is right there, by the way. Just scan that QR code. And I'll pull it up at the end of the slide deck as well, too, so that you've got it. If you don't want my emails after you get the guide, just unsubscribe. I won't be offended. All right, everybody got that? All right, let's keep going. All right, so how does my podcast get into Apple and Spotify and everywhere else? Great question. So your podcast episodes get edited, and then they get uploaded to a podcast hosting account. We use Buzzsprout. You may have heard of Libsyn or Simplecast. Or they're all very relative. They run between 10 and 25 bucks a month, depending on how many hours you're using. But you upload all of your edited episodes to your podcast hosting account, which then gives you a podcast website preloaded with all the website episodes that are already on there. And it also gives you an RSS feed. That RSS feed is then submitted to Apple, Spotify, and everywhere else. So all you have to do every time you have a new episode go live is upload it to your podcast hosting account. It gets distributed everywhere. So nobody uploads to Apple, nobody uploads to Spotify. You upload to your podcast hosting account, and that gets distributed everywhere. Spotify for Podcasters is a free podcast hosting platform. If you're just getting started and conceptualizing ideas, and you're like, I really don't know what I want to do here. It's free. Last time I checked, free is a great price. So Spotify for Podcasters. Podcast intros. Another big problem when it comes to podcasts is people are just recording something and just uploading the raw content with no editing. We're going back to first impressions again. People are pressing play on your episode, and you're making up your intro with the episode. There's no background music. There's no editing. There's no production at all. And people are like, what is this? But when you pull up a podcast episode and some cool music starts to play, and you hear somebody come on, they're like, this is Beyond the Story, a podcast dedicated to, and now here's your host, Sebastian Russ. The music plays, it fades out, and then the host starts. It's a little bit more of a warm feeling. Music also triggers something inside of us and excites us and engages us, so that we're more interested in paying more attention to what happens. So an intro is very important. It should be 25 seconds max. The shorter the better. You should hook your listeners in the first 10 seconds. Welcome to the show. This is what it's all about. Here's what to expect. Here's your host. Say who you are and who the show's for. Share what listeners can expect from each episode. Add music, a professional voiceover. Again, another thing, go to Fiverr. Go, hey, I need an intro. They'll write the script. They'll record it. They'll throw background music on there, the whole nine. If you feel like you want to do it your own, you can do it. Record it on your own. Go find background music on audiojungle.net for $10 and then send it to somebody. But have them edit it properly. It only needs to be done one time. Same thing with the outro. The outro basically just thanks people for tuning in. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Podcast Suck. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get updates as new episodes become available. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review and tell a friend about the show. That's how the show grows. Until next time, friends, music finishes playing, fades out, and that's it. Those are your bookends for each episode. Intro, outro. Another thing we don't need in the beginning of every episode is an entire dissertation and the entire bio of your guest, okay? People don't want that. They want to know who your guest is. Today, my guest is Justin Colby, real estate investor, serial entrepreneur, host of Creators Cashflow Conference, And he's up to some great things, become a great friend of mine. You know what, without any further introduction, Justin Colby, welcome to the show. That's it. I don't need to know where he went to UCLA and was in Scottsdale and moved to Miami and fell in love with a Cuban and had a couple kids. I don't need to know all that because Justin's going to tell me all that during the episode. Don't steal all the magic and the mojo before you even get into the episode.
Can you do the outro one more time?
What's that?
The outro, can you do it one more time?
What's that? What it should consist of. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way, you'll get updates as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review and tell a friend about it. It's how the show grows. Until next time. Hi, Mom. You got it. Promo teaser. This is important too. So intro, outro, bookends for each episode. Then the first thing you're going to ever record is a promo teaser. Promo teaser is a 60 to 90 second movie trailer, if you will, the who, what, why, and where of your podcast. So on Spotify, this will be the first thing that people see when they find your show, and they'll press play, and they'll decide when they're scoping you out after they look at your badass cover art, and they're like, all right, this is cool. Let me play the teaser and see what this show is all about. The teaser will then give them a quick overview. Let's see if this video plays here. Just kidding. Terrible idea. Sure, Justin, I'll use slides. No problem, bud. No. Okay. This is going to be it can be a minute. It can be 90 seconds. I'll improvise real quick since my video isn't working here on... So it would be, this is Podcast Suck, a podcast about launching and growing a podcast. If you've ever been stuck wondering how you can start a podcast, but really don't know how, you're in the right place. On this show, I'm going to help you better understand what it takes to create an intro, an outro, a teaser, how to grow your show, how to find guests. So again, if you've been looking to start a podcast and you just don't know why, welcome to Podcast Suck. Stay tuned for episode 1. That's I'm improvising, but go to ChatGPT and go, I'm starting a podcast about this. Write me a teaser script that's 60 to 90 seconds long. It'll spit something out way better than any of us could ever create. If you don't like it, tell it what you didn't like. It'll continue to revise it, tweak it, etc., until you get something you like. This is important because you can then take your cover art, throw that on the back, throw the audio of your teaser on the cover art, save it as an audiogram. That's what this is. It's pretty much a video file, and you can go post it on socials and say, hey, coming soon, my podcast drops in 2 weeks. That's a subconscious way of holding yourself accountable for making sure the show launches in 2 weeks as well, as in addition to being a piece of promo content for the podcast. Everybody clear on what a podcast teaser is all about? Yes. All right, cool. Your first 2 episodes. This is what you want to launch with. These are your pillar episodes. So intro, outro, bookends for each episode. Teaser, preview of what's to come. Episode 1 should be an extended version of the teaser. Should just be you, 8 to 12 minutes long, unpacking, welcoming people to the show. What's happening, everybody? I can't believe episode 1 is finally here. I couldn't be more excited, and thanks so much for tuning in. On this very first inaugural episode, I want to take a few minutes to, number 1, introduce myself and help you better understand exactly who I am so you know who's talking to you. But I also want to help paint a picture for you and help you better understand, number 1, why I started this show, what the show is going to be all about, and what you can expect from it. So it's a detailed 8 to 12 minutes long of who, what, why, and where of the podcast, okay? Extended version of the teaser. Episode 1 introduces you, sets the tone, educates your listener. Episode 2, you can dive right in to another solo episode if you want. If you're like, hey, listen, I got like 15 things I want to share immediately. Cool. Maybe do a quick series out of the gates on solo episodes. Keep solo episodes 8 to 12 minutes long. Or if you want to kick off your interview series because you're going to be interviewing people on the podcast, that can start with episode 2. Start with a really good guest though. Somebody really entertaining, informative, that's going to bring a tremendous amount of value to your audience right out of the gate, okay? So episodes 1 and 2, we always want to launch with 2 episodes. Otherwise, it's kind of anticlimactic to launch and have 1 episode. We live in this binge watch, binge world, binge listen environment and world now where, why watch 1 episode when we can watch the whole season today? right? So give the people what they want. Episode planning. This is important. Winging it is a terrible idea. I consider myself a seasoned professional and communicator. I still need to sit down and gather my thoughts, structure them, and put some formal outline together so I can speak intelligently about what I want to share with my audience. So you want to make sure that you're planning out your podcast episode. ChatGPT is another incredible tool to be able to do it. You want an outline. No scripts, an outline. You don't need a teleprompter. You don't need any of that jargon. You need an outline. Because an outline, go to ChatGPT. ChatGPT, I'm creating my first 2 episodes for my podcast. On episode 1, I'm going to be talking about this. I want to discuss this. I want to provide as much value about this. Please create an episode outline that lasts 8 to 12 minutes long that details exactly what I want to talk about on this episode. Make it easy for me to digest, read, and follow along while I'm reading it. It'll spit it out, copy and paste it, put it on a Google Doc, clean it up a little bit, and keep it open in front of you while you're recording. This is your guide. Kind of get lost in the weeds a little bit while you're recording your episode. Quickly look at your outline real quick. Boom, back to what you're doing. Another quick hack, your outline could then become your show notes. You can then take the outline and go back once you're done with the episode, add to it. Maybe something showed up for you during the interview or the episode you want to add to it. Add it to the outline, go back to ChatGPT, put it in there and go, ChatGPT, take this updated outline that I've created from episode 1 and create podcast show notes for me. Show notes of the description for each podcast episode to let people know exactly what the episode is all about. Not that people are going to pull up the description and go, let me go read about the episode when they can just listen to it. There's a couple other reasons why. It'll also help your podcast get indexed on Google through the description there. It also helps hearing impaired and people that may not be able to hear or watch or listen to your content be able to do that as well. So there's a couple other reasons you want show notes on there. SEO is a big reason for it, making sure that it gets indexed. We talked about the prompt that you can create there, tweak accordingly, use the same prompt for every episode, copy the outline, and use it as a guide during recording. And then I threw in the additional one, which is utilizing it for show notes. Episode editing, when it comes to editing your episodes, you absolutely must edit your podcast episodes. Do not, under any circumstance, record a podcast episode and just raw dog it, okay? Just record it and upload it wherever and move on with your day. Well, done's better than perfect, isn't it? No, it's not. Not when it comes to podcast episodes. People are judging you, and if you have just a raw episode up there that's not edited, chances are people are not going to come back and go, you know what, let's go listen to one of those unedited podcast episodes again. So rule number 1, step 1 with editing your podcast episodes, don't do it yourself, okay? Do not edit your podcast episodes on your own. You may get through 2, 3, 4 episodes. Eventually, it's going to start to feel like work, and human nature tells us that when it starts to feel like work, it's not fun, and when it's not fun, we quit. So set yourself up for success out of the gate. Go to Fiverr, type in audio editor, podcast editor. There's 500 people worldwide sitting by that absolutely would love to edit your podcast episodes, but do not. Maybe you have a virtual assistant, maybe you have a videographer that can edit your podcast episodes. Great, just don't do it on your own. I've lived these days. Back in the day, I edited my own podcast episodes. These days, I'd rather wake up in the morning, punch myself in the face, and eat my pillow than edit anything at all. But I have an entire team of people deeply passionate about editing podcast episodes. Okay, so are we going to edit our own podcast episodes? That's right, okay. Hire a freelancer on Fiverr, have your video editor do it, delegate it, delegate it, delegate it, delegate it. Do not edit your own podcast episode. Okay, rant over. Interviews. This is another biggie too. This is another gigantic problem with people talking over their guests, okay? You ever see that happen? I ask Melissa a question, she shares a story with me, and I go, let me tell you a story about similar story what happened to me. And all of a sudden Melissa's like, hey dude, who's the guest? Who's interviewing you here? Don't make it all about you. I learned from the great Larry King, the 80-20 rule. Your guest talks 80% of the time, you ask questions 20% of the time. As a comic, I joke that you've got one job as a podcast host, and that's to ask questions and shut up. That's it. Think about it. Well, how do I know if I'm talking too much? Well, remember when we were kids, our mom would say, now, honey, if you think you're talking too much, You are. That's a good little gut check. Am I talking too much? I do it all the time. Mainly when I'm on dates. Am I talking too much? Because she's staring off into space? Yeah. Be strategic, make it about them, bring value to them, make it all about them, expand on the questions. Really, tell me more about that. I love that. Amazing. I've totally been there as well. You can relate with the guest, but don't go full-blown storytelling on that. It's incredible that how it happens, and it's extremely disrespectful and negligent to the person that's giving you their time to go and do that. A lot of large celebrity names out there doing it as well. I'm not going to give any examples because this is on the internets, and I'm out here trying to make my mama proud. All right, marketing. How do I market a podcast? There is no real easy way to market a podcast, and I don't really focus on marketing a podcast per se. I focus on what you can do to leverage a podcast to make it a tool and a marketing part of your marketing strategy, but marketing is not the easiest thing to do. Micro content is probably one of the best ways. One podcast episode, audiograms, reels, images, taking one podcast episode, creating multiple pieces of content from that podcast episode. I have a talk that I give often called How Starting a Podcast Can Solve All of Your Social Media Content Problems, because it does. If your content game sucks and you're not posting as much as you should or daily and you're not showing up in the news feed, you must hate money, and people are not finding out about you because the eyeballs and the attention are in the newsfeed. They're not on billboards or newspapers or magazines. They're in the newsfeed, remember. We are digitally addicted. Statistics will tell us that each human's no further than 3.5 feet away from our phone at any given time. We are living in a digitally addicted world, and I don't see that changing anytime soon, okay? As content creators, it's part of our, it should be part of your DNA. And also responsibility to show up on there. You can run ads if you really wanted to. If you're already running ads, great. You understand the ads game, content game, boosting posts, running ads to the actual link of the podcast episode. Go and do that. Can be effective to spike downloads, gain new subscribers. Get your guests to share it. People are liars, so you want to make sure they're actually going to share it, or make sure you're connected with the right people that want to share it. They want to see you win. More inclined to go and do that. Sometimes they'll send an email out to their list. They'll share their post. You tag them. They'll tag you, etc., etc. So what else is possible when it comes to starting a podcast? What else is possible? I said earlier that anything's possible, but only 100% of the time. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the whole micro content game and what that looks like with your podcast. Solve your social media content problems because you have a podcast. How many people in here post every single day on social media? That's a huge problem. Okay. How many people want to, but they're not? Okay. All right, great. How many people have a podcast? Okay, cool. How many people are using that podcast to solve their content game on a daily basis? Okay, cool. Good. You can repurpose, I don't know what's going on here. Okay, that wasn't me. Jesus, is that you? Repurpose your podcast content, micro videos, audiograms, promo images, blog posts. I talked a little bit about that. Let's talk about what those look like real quick. This is an idea of being able to, if you record on Zoom in speaker view, whoever's talking takes up the whole frame. So we're able to create videos like this because it was in speaker view. My brand new client here, he was in side-by-side gallery view. You can still make it happen. Our team goes in here and makes sure the branding's on there. We put some sort of caption or title of the video and then captions of what he's actually saying. But this is all branded towards the podcast. Those are pretty good looking reels, I think. I mean, I'm saying it because we created them, but to go and post those as your daily content, not a lot of people would know those actually came from a podcast at initial look. So leverage what you're doing, but understand how you're actually doing it and going and recording it so that you can make sure you're getting the best quality possible. Now, if you have a videographer that's getting in there and they've got a camera in front of you and filming and everything, they can set up everything accordingly to make sure it's horizontal or vertical or whatever way it needs to get done to be able to create the content you need to be create. But we're living in this Reels heavy world because of TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. And for the time being, until the next thing comes out, that's what we're doing. So you can take the archived video recording of your podcast, chop it up into micro content, reels, video reels, etc. Now, I will say, this is a very unpopular opinion. Don't throw tomatoes at me, but I'm going to stand my ground because I feel very strong about it because there's mass confusion in the marketplace right now as to what a podcast actually is. Unless you are a gigantic celebrity or gigantic name, your podcast does not belong on YouTube. YouTube, by definition, is a video platform. People go to YouTube to watch things. They pull up podcasts to listen to things. If we look at it, podcast, by definition, it's an audio file uploaded to the internet to be consumed auditorily. That means we listen to it. This whole notion around video podcast is a bit of an oxymoron, in my opinion, in creating mass confusion across the board. I had somebody say the other day, hey, I saw your podcast on Facebook yesterday. I was like, that's funny. I haven't posted anything about my podcast on. Yeah, it was that image you posted with the caption. She thought the image with the caption was a podcast. The mass confusion out there is crazy. YouTube is fantastic, but people go to YouTube for two reasons: to be entertained, to get their questions answered. If you could do all three, winner, chicken dinner. Maybe you're taking clips that you're creating from your podcast, posting them on your YouTube channel as part of your brand as shorts. Sure, it's the same format. But if you think I'm going to record a podcast episode and put it up on YouTube, somebody's going to sit there and watch the whole thing. Now, my 24-year-old daughter would argue, Dad, I learned by watching things. Cool, then you're watching YouTube videos. You're not listening to something. I understand sometimes we're visual, sometimes we can listen and learn, but we need to draw a line in the sand and realize that podcasting is podcasting and YouTube is video. We watch something and we listen to something. When we blend those two together, it gets kind of confusing. Yes, you do record a video of your podcast recording so that you can leverage it for micro content, but don't come at me with this whole video podcast stuff. Is everybody clear about that? Does that make sense? I'm not trying to, downplay what the world likes to talk about. It's an effort to be able to provide clarity so people understand the difference between the two platforms. Okay, rant over. Oh, now my videos play. Isn't that cute? Okay, more examples of audiograms. See how this looks? It's an image that's created, it's aesthetically appealing, and it's got an audio clip behind it, and then it's got those little squiggly lines. If I press play, it would be a clip from the podcast episode with the branding from the actual podcast. This is an example of an audiogram. It can be shared just like any other content as a reel on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, MySpace. Kidding, just making sure you're paying attention, or wherever else you hang out online. Okay, of course my videos play now. Images, another example here, co-branded with whoever your guest was. It's my good friend Zach Nadler, Gary V's old agent, now business partner with Vayner Speakers, had him on the podcast and thought it was important to brand him and his face. Gary's a dear friend of mine, longtime friend of mine, and finally got the opportunity to meet the Zach Nadler, so I was really excited about that. Super good, cool dude. They're doing some great things over at Vayner Speakers, shaking things up in the world of speaking. And then take the content that you're creating and schedule it. Get a VA, get them to schedule it, get it on the calendar, and forget about it. One thing I didn't talk a lot about is recording your podcast episodes. Pick a couple days a month and go, okay, on Wednesday, every other Wednesday, from 12 to 2, we're going to record between 2 and 4 podcast episodes. That gives us 8 episodes a month. We drop 4 a month. That means we're 4 episodes ahead every time we record twice a month. Twice a month. That's 4 hours a month. Bulk recording. You want to be anywhere from 2 to 8 episodes ahead at any given time because we're all busy, right? It's a busy. Bill Gates said, busy's the new stupid. Yeah. So, but life happens. Life and family and business and stuff and this and that and shoulda, coulda, woulda. Find a recording schedule that works for you. Maybe it is once a week. Out of the gates, you really need to be as aggressive as possible and record as much as possible. And then you're like, oh shit, I'm 12 episodes ahead. I don't want to take my foot all the way off the gas, but maybe I only need to record twice a month or once a month. Create something that's realistic that you're actually going to stick with. But being able to, Tony Robbins talks a lot about creating leverage on ourselves. When we create leverage on ourselves and we find certain little hacks on doing things, it makes the things that are sometimes less than pleasurable. Some days you're just like, I don't want to record today. You've got leverage on yourself. You're just like, oh, it's only 2 hours. And then I'm done with the podcast for the rest of the month. So create and leverage on yourself, very important. And then get this stuff scheduled. There's only 12.5 scheduling options out there. I think a lot of the platforms let you natively schedule as well. But get that stuff off of your plate and the daily task of, did you post yet? Did you post yet? Did you post yet? Because I don't think we're ever going to wake up and be like, you know what? I can't wait to go post that reel today. I just can't. I don't care how awesome it is. None of us are really that excited to go, let's go. Or even maybe we delegate it. Maybe our team handles it. We're never that excited. But once it's done, scheduled, we can move on. We're also creating margin for what else we can go and work on and whatever's next for us by getting stuff, the mundane stuff, off of our plate. So Sebastian, all of this stuff has been fantastic. But I mean, what do you do to get started? Well, we've gone over all the step by step. I've given you all the how-to. I know it's a bit of a fire hose, but there are a lot of steps in launching a podcast, and there's a lot of work involved with it. Thank God, because otherwise I wouldn't be in business. But you got two options. You could do it yourself. I don't recommend that. When I say do it yourself, I mean if you've got a team and you got VAs and you have your helper or freelancers that can help you execute, do it yourself or hire an expert. I work with people that want to start a podcast, don't want to do it on their own, don't want to figure it out, want to work with the best and want to get there yesterday. That's who I have identified with my avatar on people. So people understand they are out there. Those people get that time is money. If I can get this off my plate and I can just hire somebody where all I got to do is be the star of the show and record and do what I do best, that is where I'm going to find the most success on doing it. So I don't care who you end up working with or what you end up working with, and this is by no stretch of the imagination a pitch to work with us. If you're going to work with me, you're going to work with me. If you're not, that's cool. I have one desire, though, that you launch a podcast and that you do something great with it, that you take it out in the world and you step into a completely different version of yourself because you started a podcast, that you take it out in the world and you impact somebody somewhere. Because in the beginning, like I said to everybody, who's missing out? Because you're not showing up. Guess what? When you start a podcast and you take it out into the world, you are making sure that everyone is not, it may not be everybody, but you're making sure whoever you have a word for is not missing out on you. It only takes one thing you say on a podcast episode. It only takes one thing that you say on a stage. It only takes one question that you ask your podcast guest that someone can hear and that they can go take out into the world and they can do something with it. I don't know how that shows up for you when you think of, wow, I could actually say something or I could create something that would allow someone to radically change their life and their business. I don't know about you, but that fills my cup and gets me fired up, also creates momentum and leverage in my life to continue to do what I want to do. Because there's plenty of days I get up and I just don't feel like it. And friends, I'm here to offer you the idea that you're never going to feel like it. Do it anyway. Why? Because we don't want somebody else missing out. Maybe you do, and if so, you might want to do a little more soul searching on that. So again, do it yourself. You can read my book. Send me a DM at Podcast Suck. I'll send you a free copy of my Audible book. I also have a physical copy if you're old school style on there. But don't just read the book. Do what it says. This is all of my secrets, if you will. They're not secrets. It's just my entire process. I have a YouTube channel as well, too, with an entire library of anything you could ever possibly ask or wonder about starting a podcast. I give away everything I know, all of my knowledge, all of my experience in the world of podcasting over the past decade because it's my responsibility. And if I didn't do it, I'd be a taker. So read it, but go do something with it. Thank you, friends.
So, who's starting a podcast? All right, here's what we're going to do. The last speaker, we have one more, so you guys stick with it. But she's going to bring some fucking energy. Gosh, darn it. But that felt good to me.
Helping.
Okay? Good so, good I want like a 2 or 3 minute, like get up, eat, grab an energy drink, like, because I want her to be, she is creating a culture that's like none other. So, get up, drink some Red Bull, do what you guys got to do, and then we'll bring up Miss Stormy Welsh.
Hey, by the way, do you like the intimacy of something like this? Yeah.
Play some music, Justin.
Yeah, turn
Can we
up.
get some music going? Maybe like.
Energy.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Thanks, dude. What's up, brother? Good to meet you as well. Tell me your name.
Said, Solomon. Ruben
Solomon.
I just
Good to
wanna
meet
say
you, bro.
that you were a great communicator, you know?
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man.
And I was like, man, the way you started with like the mindset. First, you started with the motivation, and then I like how you. And also, I like what you do. You know, the podcast sucks. So what I do is I help people. Actually, now you just got me that new